long distance until December opened at what, 35? Yeah, 35. And a quick story.
You know why Phillips?
Overcrowding and the fire.
Oh,
Fire and overcrowding, yeah. Got your records? No, we don't want to fight between DuSable and Phillips. I don't want to give a long introduction, but Useni Eugene Perkins is well known for his writing as a dramatist, the poet. He's written on social organizations. He's also president of an organization that tries to uplift our youth, very well known in the community. Today he's moderating this group of people who will give us from memory a little bit of highlights of living down around the old heart of the black community. Thank you.
Thank you, because of your generous remark. It's sort of common for people to say, it's an honor for me to do this. Well, it is. It's an honor and a blessing. We need to take a few minutes to have a conversation with some brothers and sisters that I grew up with. And I'm very pleased that the distinguished young man, Timber Black, the walking library, the walking encyclopedia, is here. So, I just want to give you a brief background on Ida B. Wells. Of course, it was named after the activist, newspaper publisher, and social reformer who fought for women's suffrage and was an outspoken critic of the uncontested lynchings of men and women at the turn of the century. She was born in Holly Springs, Mississippi, near Russ College. I've been to Russ College many times, and my understanding that a lot of former enslaved Africans really built that. And Magic Johnson has contributed a basketball court to Russ College. Ida B. Wells lived right across the street from Russ College. And she married Ferdinand Barnett, who was also a distinguished journalist and social activist. And she moved to Chicago, and I understand that she became the first black probation officer. A little information about Ida B. Wells. It was constructed as a WPA project between 1939 and 1940. Eleanor Roosevelt, who of course was the wife of FDR, attended the ribbon cutting ceremony. It, at that time, was the fourth and largest public housing in Chicago. I begin to think about the other ones. Ida B. Wells was the fourth. You had Jane Addams on the west side, Robert Brooks, and then you had one on the north side. Okay, and Ida B. Wells was the fourth, but it was the largest. It had 800 row houses and 860 apartments, 1,662 units. The boundaries was north 37th Street, south 39th Street. West would be South Park, which is now King Drive, to Cottage Grove. And Cottage Grove was a little deceptive because at that time it ran on a diagonal, and you had the streetcar barn was there, but at the time it was built. Now, in 1961, an extension was added to Ida B. Wells called the Clarence Darrow home adjacent. And Clarence Darrow, as many of you know, is the famous criminal lawyer who defended the Loan case and many others. And then in 1970, Madden Park was built as an extension. So you had Ida B. Wells and then Clarence Darrow to the left of it, if you're looking toward Cottage Grove, and then Madden Park. Oscar Brown Jr., no, Sr., not the junior, father of Oscar Brown Jr. was its first manager, Oscar Brown Sr. And demolition of the Ida B. Wells began in 2002, and of course it's completed now. So, I'm going to ask each one of, these are all mostly, yeah, Phillips Heights 39ers. We call ourselves the 39ers because we lived in Ivy Wells, and which is in proximity to 39. We're probably the oldest ongoing community group in this country. I think we may be in terms of coming together. I was with some of these brothers Tuesday of this week at the restaurant on 87th Street. They meet just about every Tuesday of each month. Oh, he's late. No, he's not.
He's on time.
We haven't started introducing ourselves. So these guys been meeting, breaking bread for almost 60 years. All these guys.
Wow.
And the sisters. So we have an annual picnic in Washington Park at Seven Hills. You know where Seven Hills is? It's right behind the Saba Museum. And now you get thousands, literally, of young people there, and they call themselves the 39ers. They may be the grandchildren of many of the first people to live there, but we are the original 39ers, and we make that very clear. So just think, that's about almost 70 years that we've been sort of interacting with each other. So at this time, I want to ask each of you to just say whatever you want about yourself, your name, and then after each of you do that, I'm going to ask you some questions, okay? And this is like a conversation. Okay, so we'll start with you.
You wanna see if we're original.
Right.
There's my sister right there.
Okay. Where's your sister? Oh, that's right. Did you want? Yes.
Okay, my name is Loretta Adams Reed. My mother, father, and 5 children moved into the Ivy Wells homes when they were newly built. We had moved from a kitchenette on 29th and Indiana. So when we got to the Ivy Wells, it was like moving to Lakeshore Drive. We had our own bathroom.
Some of them may not know what a kitchenette is.
A kitchenette is where you have a family living in like 3 rooms, but then you share the bathroom with people on that floor, and you have a little kitchen in someplace in your little apartment, so that's why they call it a kitchenette. But everything else was common to the people who lived on that floor. So when we moved to Ivy Wells, we were really, I mean, it was something else. We had to have all of our furniture and clothing sprayed before we could move in. That's how strict they were, that we were not bringing any bugs or anything in. So we had our own bathroom, and then we lived in what they call the garden apartment, which meant we had an upstairs and a downstairs. So we were really ritzy, and it was just beautiful. You just cannot imagine how beautiful it was, how clean it was, and in the front yard, in the backyard, there was gravel down there. Do you think we threw that gravel? Not at all. It stayed right there.
Okay, I want to cut you short, but we want everyone to
Okay, I
make a
know.
few, so.
Can I
next
just
person-
say this?
Well, we're gonna
Before I
come
go
to
on
you.
the letter, but this was in 1941, when we moved in 1941. Right.
Next one, what do you want? Make it.
Well, I can't add too much to what my sister said, except that, moving, it was like moving on up. We moved out of Wells. It was such a beautiful community, and we were self-contained.
She didn't say her
We
name.
had,
Your name.
oh, I'm sorry, my name is Nettie Adams Skurlock. And I'm the younger sister of this lady over there. But, as I said, we were, everything, we had everything in our neighborhood. And we didn't have really